everyone, and welcome to How to Weigh Kittens. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you about why it is so important for foster parents to weigh their kittens daily, and I'm also going to give you some best practices for how to do so. Weighing kittens is something every foster parent should be doing to ensure that their kittens are on the right track. A healthy kitten should be gaining weight every single day and should never be plateauing or losing weight. So why should we be weighing our kittens? Well, the biggest thing is that it helps us monitor their health. Kittens can become sick very quickly, and you need to be able to intervene when something is going wrong. But sometimes when a kitten is starting to get sick, you won't notice the really subtle signs right away. And weight loss is one of the biggest indicators we have that the kitten is not thriving. By keeping a log of the kitten's weights, you can monitor their progress so that you can intervene quickly if they start to decline. If you think about it, babies have just one job, and that is to grow. And your job as a foster parent is to help them grow. But all sorts of things can cause them to plateau, like illness, dehydration, or even underfeeding. So when you weigh them, you're making sure that you're seeing that progress that you want to see. Another reason we weigh kittens is because we need to know their weights in order to correctly dose medications and supplements. Kittens' weights change rapidly, so if they're on a medication, sometimes their doses can even change every few days. And another great reason to weigh your kittens daily is to track their progress towards adoption. In the United States, most kittens are spayed or neutered once they reach 2 pounds. So keeping track of how quickly they're growing can be useful for scheduling that appointment and making sure they're going to be the right weight for sterilization. It's important to know that weight will not give you an accurate answer about the kitten's age. I do have a weight chart that can show you the average weight of kittens during a given week of life, but weight is definitely not the best indicator of age. I recommend instead checking out my resources on kitten age and development if you're wanting help figuring out the age of your kitten. How often should we weigh kittens? Well, it depends. In some cases, I recommend every feeding. In some cases, I recommend once a day. I recommend weighing kittens at every feeding if the kitten is bottle feeding, because we want to monitor how they're doing on the bottle during this stage of rapid growth. If the kitten is new to you, because you want to get a baseline for how they're doing. If the kitten is weaning, because kittens can lose weight if weaned too quickly without supplementation. And if the kitten is sick, because monitoring weight loss or gain will be massively important to helping them recover. If a kitten is nursing with a mama cat, it's still important that you weigh them at least 1 to 2 times a day so that you can ensure mama has good milk production and the baby is sufficiently gaining weight. For kittens who are fully weaned, appear healthy, and are not new to you, you can just weigh them once a day. For instance, with my bigger weaned babies, I really just weigh them once in the morning to make sure nothing seems off. Whereas with my teeny tinies, I'm weighing them as part of each feeding throughout the day. Okay, let's talk about supplies. So the first thing you need is obviously going to be a scale. I recommend using a digital kitchen scale and make sure that you get one that can weigh in grams. I also recommend a bin or bowl. I really like using these bins that are like food storage bins. A small blanket or hand towel that's gonna go inside of that bin, and a kitten. You're also going to need a pen and notepad or a whiteboard and dry erase markers. Okay, so let's weigh some kittens. To get started, you're going to place your cloth in your bin, and then you're going to place that on top of your scale. Turn on the scale, and it should say 0. You don't want it to be weighing the bin and the cloth. If it is, make sure you just hit the button that says tare. The tare button is going to zero out the scale so that you're not weighing anything that's on top of it. You're only weighing your kitten. I highly recommend using a bin and not just trying to place a kitten on top of the scale, because they're pretty squirmy and they're not going to sit still for you when you want to weigh them like that. Having the bin is going to make it all easier. So I hit tare, wait till the scale says 0, and then I'm ready to plop my kitten inside. And see, the kitten is not able to squirm away from this, so it makes it much easier to get an accurate reading. Make sure that the scale is set in grams. The reason I recommend grams instead of ounces or pounds is because it's a very small unit of measurement that will let you monitor their growth in small increments. Remember, it takes an entire month for a kitten to grow to be 1 pound, so if you're weighing in pounds, you're not gonna get a very accurate reading. Excuse me. Okay, so now you should have a reading of your kitten's weight in grams, and you're going to write that on your chart, and that's it. Super simple, takes just 5 seconds. Thank you, you are a very good model. Now, in terms of tracking their weight, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can simply write the date and time on a notepad or on a whiteboard, or you can print out one of my free growth and monitoring charts from my website, which has a place to write the date, time, pre-feeding and post-feeding weights, and notes. Now, whether you do pre-feeding and post-feeding weights or just post-feeding weights is really up to you. For me, I find it most helpful to do before and after their meal when they are a newborn kitten, because newborn kittens will eat very little, sometimes only 2 cc's in a meal, which is hard to measure on the bottle. So sometimes I'll weigh them before and after just to confirm that they did have a good meal. So if they're a newborn or you're having a hard time telling if they're really eating enough, you can do a pre and post-feeding weight. Otherwise, it's fine to just stick with post-feeding weights. The other thing I would always recommend noting is when they poop. You don't need a fancy chart for this. Most of the time, I just write a P after the number, which reminds me that they pooped at that meal. This is good for both monitoring the frequency of their bowel movements and also explaining any variances in their weight, because obviously if they poop, they're going to weigh a little bit less at that meal. Okay, so let's talk about what we're looking for when we're looking at our weight charts, because obviously we're not just taking their weights for funsies, right? So what do we look for when we are tracking their growth trends? Well, here's a sample weight chart I like to use as an example. So here we have Marshmallow, Chocolate, and Graham. And we are looking at their weights every 4 hours on this feeding chart. So you can see for Marshmallow at the 4 p.m. feeding, he did go down in weight. Sometimes I like to draw a little arrow down when they decrease in weight. But there's also a P at that feeding, which means he pooped. So that explains that, and I'm not too worried about it. At the end of the day, he gained 15 grams, which is huge. So I'm not at all concerned about Marshmallow. Now let's look at Chocolate. At the 12 p.m. feeding, he went down in weight, but he had pooped, so that makes sense. And at the end of the day, he gained 6 grams. That's a little bit less than I'd like to see a kitten gain in a day, but it's just cause for mild concern, very mild. Now let's look at Graham. Graham lost weight at his 8 a.m. feeding, but he had not pooped. Then at 4 p.m. he lost some weight again, but he had pooped. And then at 12 a.m. he lost weight again, and his total for the day was -2 grams. So this kitten I am concerned about. So we want to track their weight throughout the day, but it's not just about their weight gain at each feeding. We want to get that daily gain. It's important that the overall trend is going up and that any young kittens we're caring for are gaining about 7 to 14 grams a day. So what do you do if a kitten isn't gaining weight? What do we do for those kittens that we're concerned about? Well, if you see that they've lost weight or plateaued, you want to start addressing that right away by investigating their health and maybe by providing some supportive care. Obviously, my advice here is going to be to talk to a vet or to your foster coordinator. There's no way that I can cover in this video exactly what is going on with your kitten. There are a million reasons that a kitten can lose weight, from congenital disease to a bacterial infection to a virus to a parasite load to simply not being fed frequently enough or enough volume. So you want to talk with a vet to identify the source of the problem. But there are things you can do to help. For instance, taking note of their symptoms, their temperament, and even their temperature. You could even take a stool sample to your vet for a fecal exam. My point is that weight loss should prompt a desire to get to the bottom of what's going on, and quickly. But then there's supportive care, addressing those symptoms, which is something that you can often do right away. Take Yeti, for instance. Earlier this week, he was not eating enough and he was seeming a little dehydrated from undereating. I did one little session of subcutaneous fluids and B12 and it helped him a lot. Sometimes that's all they need to perk back up and get on track. But sometimes supportive measures aren't enough because they're not addressing an underlying issue. So you want to support the kitten's health and make sure they're staying hydrated and warm and being fed on a regular schedule at a good volume. But you also want to talk with a vet so that you can quickly address if there's something else going on. Issues like sepsis, viruses, and parasites need swift intervention. That's why taking a kitten's weight is so important. It's going to help you intervene swiftly. You don't want to learn the hard way about the importance of early intervention. With kittens, things can truly change within a matter of hours, and you don't want to wait until it's too late. This is why I believe keeping a weight chart is one of the single best things foster parents can do to help their babies. So I hope that helps you see why it's so important to weigh our foster kittens. When it comes to caring for little ones, don't skip this step. Trust me, it is worth the wait. Get it? Worth the wait. I'll see myself out.